Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech. And iOS 18.4 released to the public a couple weeks ago, and iOS 18.5 Beta 1 has been out to developers for about a week and a half at this point. But there's even more to talk about since the iOS 18.5 Beta 1 is out. What's new video. We'll talk about features, we'll also mention some Apple news and things you should know, as well as the overall experience since I have them installed on the iPhone 16 Pro Max and I've been using it full time on this phone as well as the iPad Pro. We'll also take a look at your experience based off the YouTube community poll on the post page, where we have over 10,000 votes and 153 comments. I've gone through all the comments to see what the overall experience is like on both versions, so be sure to stick around toward the end of the video where I'll read some of your comments as well. Now, Apple continues to spread the availability of satellite-based connectivity around the world. Some users in New Zealand and Japan are now seeing satellite connectivity as an option when they don't have cellular signal. This is something they rolled out in the USA for a little while, and it seems to be done through Starlink. So it seems to cover much of Japan as well as New Zealand at this point. So let me know if you've lost cellular signal and you're now seeing connectivity through satellite availability. Now, Apple is once again facing lawsuits over promised Siri features with Apple Intelligence in both the USA and now Canada. There were a bunch of features that were initially promised, they rolled them out slowly, and never made them available. Still, some of them aren't available and are postponed probably until iOS 19. So lots of odd things going around there, and those lawsuits are sort of saying Apple false advertised, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with those. However, this week we heard there was a lot more chaos around Siri and Apple Intelligence than originally thought. A new report from The Information gives insight to how Siri was often handed back and forth between teams, and then there were different AI large and small language models that were considered, and constant changes that went back and forth, frustrating engineers. It also seems Apple's Siri demo of a more integrated and context-based Siri was basically fake and was a surprise to many of the Siri team. So where they showed maybe it would understand information throughout your iPhone and know exactly what you're talking about, apparently that was something Apple wasn't really telling anyone that was going to be in the update, and later they learned just from watching WWDC like the rest of us. So it's confirmed that Apple is now showing fake demos and what they hope will be available in the future, and it's led to a new level from Apple that we would have never expected. This is unacceptable and is not something we've ever expected from Apple at all. Apple used to show live demos of new features in action every year at WWDC, and I certainly think Apple should return to this to restore confidence. Now Craig Federighi and Mike Rockwell are in charge of iOS 19 and AI and Siri, and hopefully will make this right in the near future, but we're not really sure as this is something that has been going on for a long time, it seems. So why they're actually going to this level of sort of hope in what we think should be in the update is a bit of a mystery at this point. So hopefully we see some big changes in the future, they figure it out, and it's something that we should see. There's some recent news that also says that those Siri features we've been waiting for will be in this fall's update as well with iOS 19, not postponed to 2026 like others have said. So we'll have to see if what they're saying is true according to the New York Times, or if it will be postponed according to some others. Apple this week updated their self-service repair site, so you'll see this is self-service repair, and if you want to select a product, maybe you need to replace a display, you can select maybe Studio Display or something else, but you could replace maybe, let's go to iPhone here. We'll go to Product Model, and you'll see that we now have the 16E as an option. So if you want to repair maybe a display on the 16E, you can do that with genuine parts. However, it's $229, and I don't think you'd save a whole lot by doing it yourself. You could bring it to a store, and typically if you had Apple Care, they'd just replace it for a deductible. So overall, it's fairly expensive if you want to do that, considering the phone is about $600 anyway, and this is over a third of the price. WhatsApp received a nice update this week with chats for encrypted messages. So if you're using WhatsApp, there's chats for encrypted messages with friends and family members, and also many other features. So if we go to WhatsApp's website where they posted this, it says new feature roundup, updates to group chats, events, calls, channels, and more. I'll link this in the description, but you can see all of the things here where we have tappable reactions, document scanning on iPhone, default app for iPhone, calls, pinch to zoom in video calls, add to call from a chat, enjoy smoother video calls, and some other updates as well. It was quite a big update, so if you're using WhatsApp, make sure to update if you haven't already. Some good news in the way of updates as well is it looks like Instagram is finally going to make its way to iPad. It looks like that's being worked on, and we've been waiting for this for quite some time, for years at this point, and it looks like they're taking advantage of a possible TikTok ban. So at this point, we could see that hopefully very soon, but we don't have a time frame for that just yet. Now, Apple has been working on Apple Maps on the web, so if you want to go on your Mac or maybe a Windows computer and go to Maps for Apple, you'll see that it's available. But now this week, it's available on Safari, Edge, Chrome, and Firefox on your mobile device. This wasn't available before and would just open up into the Apple Maps app. So now if you want to use that, you can use it, and I'll link it in the description as well. Now, when it comes to iOS 18.5 Beta 1 and the features that are available, well, with the first beta, there usually isn't that many changes. That was true with iOS 18.4 Beta 1. There should be a lot more with Beta 2. However, we do have a few of them I've mentioned before, such as if we go into Settings, then we go to General, and Apple Care and Warranty has been updated. But I wanted to point something out. If I go into Apple Care and Warranty from here, it will give me an error. So we'll wait for this to load here. You'll see it says something went wrong. So if we go back, and then instead I go to About, and then Apple Care, we have a new interface. And you can see the updated interface here where you can manage your plan, finish Apple Care Plus plan setup, and see the different coverage you have and learn more about benefits. Within the Photos app, if we go down to Recently Deleted, unlock and view the album here, you can now recover all and then delete all. This is something that we had with iOS 18.4 betas that they've brought back for 18.5 since they didn't include it in the final release. Also, if we go into Mail, within Mail, if you're in a mailbox, you can now more easily switch it back to what we had with the list view and then get rid of contact photos if you want to, where before we just had show priority. That's pretty much it for iOS 18.5 Beta 1, but again, I would expect Beta 2 to have more features. Maybe we'll see battery intelligence for once, and what battery intelligence would do is allow you to plug in your phone, and then when it's locked, it would just tell you how much time there is left to charge. This is something that's very simple. We have it on Mac. There's no reason we couldn't have it on the iPhone, so maybe we'll see that in the near future. As far as anything else, well, iPhone 17 Pro, we keep seeing more and more about that, and this week it looks like we've got some finalized cases from Sonny Dixon. He posted this on X where it shows the case with the large cutout for the camera tray. So that's something that looks like it's going to be finalized. However, the two-tone design many people are posting online seems like it's not lining up with what we actually have. It seems like it's going to be a one sort of design back as far as the color, similar to what we have here, or maybe more closely resembling what we had with the iPhone 5, where we have this matte black back with maybe glass inserts. Either way, we can expect a new camera tray, and these are the cases that go along with it. There was quite a bit of news this week about iOS 19 and what the app icons could actually look like. Many had said that they'll change either from this squared off design to maybe a circular design similar to Vision Pro. However, John Prosser this week released a video showing what appeared to be icons shaped just like the Samsung Squircle icons. That's actually something I've always changed. So here's an S24 Ultra. You can see here, let's unlock it. You can see that's a Squircle icon. I typically change them to a circle because I don't care for that. The radius of the icon is a little odd for the corners, so that's something that maybe we'll see with iOS 19. However, I would be very surprised if Apple actually does that. Like I said, it's something I always change on Samsung phones as I really don't like the look of those. I hope Apple doesn't really utilize this or either goes full circle and sticks with what we have now or just gives us an option to maybe adjust the overall corner radius and change it for ourselves. We've also been hearing that watchOS 12 could get a visionOS style redesign. But if this turns out to be true, of course, we could see a complete different change here that would line up with what iOS 19 has, macOS, and others. So that's something we'll have to wait until WWDC to see, and that, of course, is in June. So we've had that invite for a little while, or at least the announcement. Invites typically go out to the press and media in May, but we do have that on the 9th, and the keynote will usually be around 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Now this week, Apple stopped signing iOS 18.3.2. That means you can no longer downgrade to it, and it leaves only iOS 18.4. That makes me think this coming week, we may see iOS 18.4.1. So based off what we've had in the past, it seems likely that we could have that as soon as maybe Monday. If we don't have it this week, I would expect it the following week. I do expect this week, though, to see iOS 18.5 Beta 2 either on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. It's been a couple weeks at this point. That's typically what the release schedule is for early betas, so we could see that along with the public beta release as well. Of course, like I mentioned before with WWDC, we'll also see iOS 19 on the 9th, and then typically have betas throughout the summer with a public release sometime in the second or third week of September. That's typically what we have. Now with iOS 18.4, it seems there's a new level of bugs this week. After it's finished processing in the background, many people have started to experience some odd issues. Typically, we see some great battery life and things up front, but now it seems like other things are causing problems. Apple did fix quite a few things, so let's first mention those. They seem to have fixed the camera bug, so if you go into the camera, whether it's through camera control or maybe the lock screen, you just wake up your phone, slide over. Many people had a black screen before. It looks like that's been fixed. Also, they've fixed the issues with notification sounds coming through. Many people have mentioned that, and they fixed the mail notifications and checking for mail. Most people say that that has been resolved. However, opening messages sometimes has issues. So again, here's the next level of bugs I'm referring to. A lot of weird issues have popped up after a week or so. So opening messages sometimes just shows the overall number and then takes a couple seconds to show the contact name. I've seen this, others have seen this as well. And also CarPlay seems to be the biggest issue here. Many people are saying CarPlay connectivity is broken entirely. I'm seeing this more on Hondas and some other cars. I haven't seen it in Toyota or BMW, but many people are reporting that there's some problems where it would just disconnect. Maybe it would connect, disconnect, and not work properly. So I've seen that disconnect as far as when I first connect to the car, I've connected, it works okay in a BMW, then all of a sudden stops working, disconnects, and then reconnects. So I've seen some odd issues as well. There's also some touch issues many people are experiencing, just going into apps, sometimes it being a little slow. You may have already seen that here, along with some micro stutters. You may see the micro stutters less on the newer phones with ProMotion, but it's definitely there. That was an odd thing when I canceled as well. Some really weird issues going on here. Also, notifications seem to scroll smoothly for me. I know not everyone sees this, but for me, it seems nice and smooth. Swiping them off the screen, anything like that seems to be what you would expect. However, the wallpaper dimming bug is very severe in this update. So maybe it's this wallpaper as it's very vibrant. You can see what it looks like here. Then if I swipe home, it just desaturates, just jumps to desaturation. So that's something that I would love to see fixed, as I want the wallpaper to show as I have it set. I've changed tons of different settings and it just won't fix it. So it's definitely an issue. When it comes to iOS 18.5's experience, well, I've been using it full time on my main phone here, and there's a couple issues to mention. I haven't had this myself, but Siri for some is reverting to the old style. However, many see that it's actually downloading in the background. So if you go to Apple Intelligence and Siri, sometimes it's downloading a new model for that and not showing properly. Once it finishes downloading, it works okay. Others are having issues with AirPods Max. So if you have AirPods Max with USB-C, that doesn't seem to be working. And some other people are saying that their wireless hotspot isn't working. So if you use personal hotspot, some people have issues with that. I haven't seen that myself, but many people have commented on that. When it comes to performance, many say that iOS 18.4 is pretty good overall. However, there are those micro stutters I mentioned before and those odd issues I showed just a moment ago when going through ProMotion. However, iOS 18.5 has a few other issues that I've noticed. For example, iOS 18.5 was good and then seemed to slow down for me. So on the iPhone 11, as I scroll here, you'll see just doing simple things such as scrolling is okay, but then occasionally it will slow down. I had my phone slow down to the point where I had to reboot it to fix the problem. So for whatever reason, I'd go into Control Center, it was super laggy, maybe go into Music, it would be really slow, and you'll see it reloaded there, showing that RAM issue. And just in general, it's been a little odd. A reboot does seem to fix it though. When it comes to heat and thermals, well, heat overall seems to be okay for me. So in general, if you're using it, it seems to stay nice and cool. Let me show you that with the thermal camera, but both are fairly cool at this point as far as to touch the back of them. On iOS 18.5 Beta 1 on the 16 Pro Max, it's sitting at about 31.5 degrees Celsius or so. On the 16 Pro Max with 18.4, maybe a degree cooler or so, or right around 31 degrees. So in general, very cool overall. Definitely a little bit cooler than last week, maybe by a degree or so, but overall, what you would expect at this point. Now, if you're running a game, it's going to get a lot hotter. When it comes to overall battery life, well, first let's take a look at 18.4 as it seems to vary greatly for many people. Thanks to Abhishek for sending this in. This is on an iPhone 11 Pro Max with 77% battery health. He had 3 hours and 2 minutes of screen on time, 42 minutes of screen off time, and used about 50% of his battery. Overall, that's pretty good, consistent with what he had before, 3 hours and 47 minutes of screen on time, using about 70% of the battery. So overall, not terrible, not great, but definitely better than what we've seen in the past. As far as iOS 18.5 Beta 1, well, let's take a look here. Battery health, you'll see I'm at 100% capacity with 170 cycles. You can see more details here with coconut battery. And if we take a look at my battery life, now that it's finished processing, you'll see yesterday I had 4 hours and 20 minutes of screen active time, 4 hours and 59 minutes of screen idle time, and used about 60% of the battery. So overall, not too bad. Today, 2 hours and 37 minutes, and we're down to 56%. So it's a little bit worse today. So it varies greatly. It does seem like it's gone down since using 18.4 though, but it is an early beta. As far as overall benchmarks, well, I did run those a little bit earlier, and they're decent overall, so let's take a look. Now, this one here, you'll see overall the scores are good. They're consistent with what you would expect, and basically what we had before, well within the margin of error. So they seem to be performing well, no real variations here, and not really an issue, but this gives you an idea of what to expect. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some of your comments and see what you had to say. Vacay Cebu says, CarPlay major failures. Using iPhone 14 Pro, Honda Passport. Nobody, N8E, said, 18.4 is the worst iOS version ever on my iPhone 14 Pro Max. Open 3 or 4 apps in a row, then the first one gets refreshed. Worse than an Android with 4 GB of RAM. So I downgraded to iOS 18.3.2 and now everything works fine again. Dentist KK said, after reinstalling iOS 18.4 via PC, most of those issues that people are facing are gone. Screen on time is around 7 hours on a single charge on my 16 Pro. But I can still feel micro stutters and choppiness sometimes while scrolling. Hopefully 18.4.1 will fix that. PRXSII said, I spoke too soon when 18.4 got released. After things settled down, battery life has been not so great. Getting random stuttering while scrolling, and CarPlay randomly quits working and takes forever to get working again. What on earth is Apple doing over there? Isaacman 1870 says, iOS 18.5 Beta 1 is running well for me. Nothing major to report. iPhone 13 Pro Max. Magnificent Productions said, hi Aaron, I'm on iOS 18.5 Beta 1 on my iPhone 15 Pro Max. The battery drain is terrible on this beta. Otherwise, the phone is working smoothly. Now, I'm really hoping that iOS 19 is maybe rebuilding some things where they just couldn't fix them before. I know I might be a little bit hopeful of this, but if they are redesigning something, maybe they're fixing the underlying code, as I know many of us still just want stability. So I'm looking forward to different changes, some maybe visual updates, maybe some rounded icons. We'll have to see how that looks, but overall, it's definitely something I'm looking forward to, but hopeful that stability is something that comes with it. Android, for whatever reason, lately has actually been more stable for me. So whether you're using an S24 Ultra, S25 Ultra, a Pixel, or something else, it seems to be more of a stable experience. And that's just something we would have never said about Android compared to iOS before. So hopefully Apple is hearing this feedback and hearing your feedback, and hopefully we'll fix it at some point. It's getting a little bit out of hand, and I really just hope that they're taking their software to the next level and not adding a next level of bugs and some oddities with showing us features that don't actually exist. Let me know what you think of this in the comments below. So that's everything with iOS 18.4 and iOS 18.5 Beta 1. Hopefully next week we'll have Beta 2 and maybe some new features and changes. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.